There we go. Now you guys should be able to hear me. Well, I was saying welcome to the stream. It's been a while since I've done the stream, and I do see a few people have already jumped in and said hello. Tom Reed, I see you're from the UK. Awesome for you to show up. Thank you for coming. Zachary, there we go. Okay, cool. Zachary, it's a bummer you gotta run, man, but yeah, go ahead and ask that question away. And let me pop this out so I'm not looking so far. There we go. This is better. Frank, thanks for the cannot hear you. That kind of flagged me down. Oh, hey, PDF. Been a while since saw ya. Okay, I guess to kick it off, Zachary asked, how do I plan my target per season? He's using a wide field setup and wants to know, let me switch it to this actually. He wants to know, wants to get the most out of summer and nebula time. Well, to start, it's a lot of poking around in Stellarium. You know, pick a catalog. Right now, I still haven't done the entire Messier catalog, so you know, whatever's visible at that time of year in that catalog, I'll try to go for it. For wide field setups, you might not be able to go for anything like star clusters, some of the real small ones. But for the big nebula, definitely, with a wide field setup, you have tons to work with. And if you poke around in planetarium software, Stellarium, Sky Safari, stuff like that, it gives you a ton to look at. And you can also, another way, if you don't want to look in a planetarium, is just browse stuff like AstroBin or Reddit's Astrophotography section and just look at the time of year people are posting things. A lot of the time that might get the juices flowing on, well, this is visible at this time of year, so maybe that's my next target because I haven't done it yet. So that might be something you want to do. Al the Pal, hello. It's nice to see you here, man. So, how's everybody's night while I wait for some more questions to roll in? How's your Friday going? And just so we get some introductions going on, where's everybody from? I saw that Tom Reed was from the UK, like I said earlier, but where's everybody else from? Another UK person. That is awesome. Tom, you got lucky. You have a nice clear night. That's not the case here. No, if I look out this window right here, all I see is clouds, which is kind of a bummer. And looking at Astrospheric and clear outside, all of it says that this weekend is not a good one, but I'm not mad because of the moon phase, so. Pete, haven't set up in a while. When was the last time you set up? But yeah, southern Utah, I can bet it's a little bit too hot. Even look outside and it kind of wants to melt, huh? Yeah, Zach, there's, you know, all the typical places where people post their pictures. You can watch each one of them, and there's just a wave of, towards the beginning of summer, the Roafuki pictures start coming in, and then towards the end of summer, beginning of fall, Andromeda pictures start rolling in, and then once Orion's high in the sky, you start seeing the Orion pictures, and of course, there's other objects at that time of year, but you just watch the wave and then you go, well, you know, I haven't done that one yet, so maybe that's the next thing. Joe from Michigan. Which part? Upper Peninsula or the lower area? I went up to the Upper Peninsula 5 years ago and hiked up in Pictured Rocks. It's a beautiful place. I am located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which apparently is among one of the cloudier cities in the United States. So that's why when I look out the window right now, I see clouds. But no, the weather has been mainly clear throughout the week, and then weekends are just like bleh. Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember driving through that area. It takes a while to get all the way up there to that big bridge. Oh, hey, Texas. Yeah, you're welcome. Um, yeah, using the hand controller with the ASI Air, it's just awful. So, going with a different route definitely helps. And I do believe you did ask a question. I want to pull it up, so hold on. Give me 1 second to pull that up. Okay. Switch back to this and that so I can see. All right. So Texas Backyard asked a question about K2. So a single long exposure, or long exposures, will it appear as big as Neowise did? Things of that nature. So let me find the best. Well, there's no good way to add this in without messing up my layout here, but I'll just read it off. So what would be the best way to photograph K2 next week? Single long exposure. So far the long exposure has produced no tail. Will K2 appear as big as Neowise did? The DSLR and Star Tracker seem to be a good fit for Comet Neowise. Thank you in advance. And Neowise was my first attempt to photograph a comet. I hope to get better photos with Comet K2. So yeah, Texas, it is a little bit different. Let me pull up Stellarium because I did add it in. It's not going to be anywhere near as brilliant as Neowise was. Neowise was kind of a one-off compared to a lot of them. But it's still going to look pretty good. Let me change my landscape here before I switch it over. Okay, and switch that over. Okay, so we are in Stellarium, and I'm just going to bump it up. This will help you guys know where it's at, too. If you look, down here is Rho Ophiuchi. If we turn on the constellation lines too, so you can see where it's at, it's in Ophiuchus. And it's a kind of a bummer tonight that it's cloudy where I am, but if you are able to image this weekend, a really cool thing is that it's right next to M10, which might produce an interesting shot. So with my current setup, with the Xenostar ZS61 and the ASI 294, this is what that would look like. Now, getting a tail, you're not really going to get one. The tail is actually rather small, but you'll get kind of like an area like this. But when it comes to the exposure lengths, say if you're taking a shot like this where you have M10 in there with it, you're going to want to take some shots specifically for the other objects, so M10 in this case. And then take a few shots for the comet, and then you might have to do a little bit of a composite to make it look good. But because the comet is moving so fast that even with short exposures, say even 10 seconds at a focal length of over 300, you're gonna get some streaky stars. So keep that in your mind when you're setting up your image. If you want to expose only for the comet, say 2 days later, it'll be a little bit further out of range. Actually, 3 days is a little bit more like it, where you can expose just for the comet. With short exposures, you're still going to get streaks unless you go with a higher gain or ISO and shorter exposures. Switch it back to the chat so I can see what's going on that. Did that help you out at all, Texas? Okay, yeah. Even So for most comets, they do move very fast. Like I said, we got extremely lucky with Neowise a couple years ago. Just because of where it was so bright that really you didn't have to expose for very long to get a really good picture of it. So this one, it's a little bit further out. It's magnitude 8 right now, so it's kind of dim. And, you know, just got to work with what we got. When it comes to visually seeing it, as far as I understand, small scopes can see it. If you have a Dob, you definitely will be able to see it. Binoculars are kind of depending on what pair you got. But looking back in Stellarium real quick, let me switch back and reselect it. We got quite a while before it disappears, so you see the little red cross there. And this is from my position too, so got a little over a month, so you guys got plenty of chances. And those of you that are further south, you might have a little bit better chance not having to deal with the horizon like I will at the end of August. Hey Augie, yeah, it's great to see you again, man. Yeah, yeah, well, I guess we'll get it out of the way. The foot thing, it fell down my stairs, kind of dumb, carrying something down them, and my stairs are very steep. Landed right on it, and just kind of laid me up for a couple months, but it still hurts, but you know, I'm walking again, which is fantastic. And as you saw with last week's video with the mosaics, or not last week's, but the week before with mosaics, I did get out to the observatory and get a chance to do some actual imaging, and I haven't released that picture yet on Instagram or anything, but I will here soon. Yeah, with the moon being bright, this is the time to do like star clusters, or if you're doing narrowband with certain filters, say you're just doing hydrogen alpha, that's the perfect time to do it. And then go for the wide field stuff when the moon's down. Yeah, Pete, I would agree with you on that one. I'd love to see another Neowise. Excuse me. I've been watching, there's a site, I forget which one it is. Let me see if I can find it. It's an awesome site I found once that just lists off a bunch of comets and when they might be visible. Stumbled across it once and now I don't remember where it is. Well, no, that one's not good, because there's the one I found had like a list of expected magnitudes when they're visible. So far, the ones that are like 5-6 years out, it's anybody's guess on how bright they're going to be or how close they're going to get. But it seems like once it gets about a year or two and closer, they start getting the guys who do all the math start getting it right. So. Yes, Augie, I would agree with your assessment there. It is it's not fun. So what else you guys got for me? Keeping up on chat here. Sometimes I get to talking and and I just lose it, but you guys aren't saying anything, so. Let's see. A couple things off the top of my head coming up. Yes. Okay, there we go, Texas. Yeah. So the video stacking feature for the ASIR Plus can be great for full moon photos. I agree. I haven't actually messed with it yet, and the reason for that is every time I turn the ASIR onto the moon, for some reason it just does not want to plate solve, and I'm trying to figure that one out. So it's a bummer because of the moon this weekend. I could be out there playing around with it, but it's cloudy. So. So Pete asked at our last club meeting, we looked at the new James Webb Telescope images, and have I looked at them, and what do I think? So yeah, I have. They're beautiful, of course, and the comparison one from Hubble, first off, I find all the memes entertaining. There's some pretty funny ones. But the level of detail in that image is actually astonishing. And from what I understood when it first launched, that there wasn't really supposed to be anything broadband and color, kind of like what we're used to doing. It was supposed to be more like infrared and stuff that would be used more for scientific measurements and not necessarily pretty pictures. And when I saw what they produced and the fact that they produced that picture with pics in sight, I was just like, seriously? I am kind of bummed when it comes to the stars on how big the diffraction spikes are. I mean, they're massive. If they could have done something a little bit better to get each mirror plate a little bit closer together to prevent that, that would be awesome. But you know, it's already up there and out of NASA's hands, so there's nothing they can do about it. But yeah, I think it's an amazing picture, first few pictures that come from it, and I can't wait to see, you know, once they start actually doing science and not just testing what comes from it. Texas. What did you end up taking last? Oh, just the moon stuff. Since you just mentioned the moon. And Augie mentioned he got a new Newtonian and trying to figure out what to do first. This time of year, go for like the lobster, the cat's claw, if you can see it. If not, then maybe eagle or omega. It's 4 different ones to pick from right there. Or if you're down south, you know, start poking around in, I forget where you are, Augie. I know I've talked to you before, but I just don't remember your location. If you're down south, off the top of my head. Start poking around in Karina, maybe do a big mosaic. Oh, no, so okay, so yeah, you're not down south. All right, so yeah, Columbus, Ohio, you're pretty much the same latitude as I am, so you should be able to get the lobster, cat's claw, depending on what your southern horizon, or yeah, cat's paw, rather. Depending on what your southern horizon looks like, you might be able to get it. But you'd definitely be able to do eagle or omega with no problem. Pull up that. Pull up that one image real quick. Actually, yeah, let's switch back to do this way. Huh. Really? So that works for you, Pete? I thought about doing something like that too. Find a bright object near it or a bright star near the moon, and then salute it there, and then tell it to go to the moon, and then it'll just scoot over. And yeah, maybe it's just something in ZWO's algorithm they use for the moon where, like, it doesn't trigger like, hey, this is the moon, it might be bright. So when it plate solves, it kind of like really dims things down, so it figures out the moon's there. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny because like if you look at your guide cam, Pete, for me, just the guide cam is just blown out because of the moon being right there. I wanted to switch back to the James Webb thing for a second. switch over to this. So I don't know if you saw all of the pictures from it, but the which one is it? It's this one that has all the memes. That's the comparison with the Hubble. But this Carina Nebula picture it's astounding. I mean, I don't think any one of us with anything on the ground is ever going to get anything like that. Stevens Quintet. That's crazy. Especially given that you need a decent telescope for that one anyway. And this Hubble comparison here, the amount of detail that is on these outer edges, this definitely shows just how much more sensitive the sensors are getting, because this Hubble one, like, you can barely see it. And then some graphs. We can ignore the graphs there for a second. But yeah, I definitely loving these pictures. Check up with chat here for a second. Okay, so we have Joe asking, I'm a beginner very new with an old CG5 mount and having problems guiding with the ASAR Plus. Do you have any tips on settings? I'm also using a 240mm guide scope with ASI 224 MC camera. Is your guide scope 240mm or is your main camera? That's the first thing I want to ask about that. Switch back to this. Well, yeah, Joe, you mentioned your guide scope is 240mm. What's your main scope, too? Like, just give me both, I guess, so helps narrow it down a little bit. Yeah, Pete, while I'm waiting for Joe to talk here, you put it into moon mode. Just remember, when you go back to another object, you switch it back to side reel. Probably a bunch of people that already have gone. You know what I mean? Okay, so you have the SV Bony 80mm. That's your main scope, right? See, even on an SV Bony 80mm, the little 120 mini that you get in the ASI or Pro kit, I would use that scope all the way up to probably about 100mm main scope, because once you get up to that about that 100mm, that's when you start getting close to the threshold on the little tiny guide scopes not being able to keep up. So for you, maybe going with SV Bony has their own version of the 120 mini that Zewo puts out. So maybe I would suggest getting that, but you don't have to. Are you having any focusing problems with your guide scope? Like, are they never pinpoint sharp or anything, or is it always a little bit washed out? While we wait for Joe again, Marcio Riviero, hi, nice to see somebody from Brazil here. That's awesome. What southern target do you really wish to be in the north? Ooh, that's a tough one because there's a lot of good ones down there. Probably the Fighting Dragons. That one looks really cool. Yeah, the Carina is nice, but I don't have to go that far south to get to it. And Tarantula is ginormous, but fighting dragons, there's just something about that. Every interpretation I've seen of it just looks really awesome. It's a little washed. Okay. At that point, Joe, what I would recommend is play around with your gain and your exposure time just a little bit. Of course, make sure your guide scope is focused. But if you're having problems staying on the stars, then play around with the gain and the exposure time. So for example, the setup that I use, I have it usually at about 3 seconds, and the gain is, I want to say, like 100. It's in the middle for the ASIR app. It's in the middle for the guide scope, and it works out fine. As long as you can get it to lock on to like 4 or 5 stars because of the multi-star guiding, you should be fine. Pete, I will look at that again here in a second. I'm gonna pull that back up. Hey Ollie, how's it going, brother? And we got Australia in the house. Alright, I want to switch that back. Oh yeah. Alright, now I see what you're talking about. Let's pull this up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so with the James Webb version, it pulled a lot more in these outer fringes, but it didn't have the infrared of the second star there. But yeah, I see what you're saying with the Hubble one. That's awesome. Huh. Didn't even notice that one right away. I was looking at all the other pretty details. Yeah, you're welcome, Joe. Yeah, if you have any more questions, go ahead and ask away. So, I guess let me flip that one back around on you, Marcio, and I'm going to ask Ollie this one too. What northern target do you wish was in the southern hemisphere? Just to see what you guys are saying. Yeah, Texas, I get that sometime. But one thing, and I would love to show you guys this, and it'll happen eventually. I'd like to get it to the point where these live streams every now and then have some EAA in it. The live stack on the ASIR, if you're just doing it for EAA, isn't the best. I'm not tearing them up because it is good, but if you were to stack, if you were to save each image from an EAA session, stack them somewhere else. But you can do so much more once you get it onto your computer and play around with it that way. Yes, Pete, I agree with you. It would be a dream to go to the Southern Hemisphere sometime. I definitely want to get down there. I will make it a way to make it a point to get down there sometime in the next few years. In fact, tomorrow I gotta go renew my driver's license, so maybe I'll inquire about how much passports increased while I'm in the area, because I think the building I'm going to can do both. Cars in this neighborhood. Yeah, I'd love to go down there and get the fighting dragons. I'd like to get the fighting dragons, the wishing well cluster, pretty much everything I listed in all of my targets per season videos. Once I get down there, I definitely would just love to spend, a week a season down there and just shoot my heart out, really. Definitely look at it, Texas. So Tom Reed asks, how long is enough when it comes to total exposure time? Now, this one is a little bit of... It depends on the target. So brighter targets are obviously easier to get to. So something like Andromeda or M13. You might be able to get the results you want in an hour or two. When it comes to the dimmer stuff or something that has really faint edges, so I'm going to resend on Andromeda for that last one because of the very dim outer edges, and you might need to take a lot of data just to pull those out. When it comes to the total exposure time, more is always better. And I would recommend, if you can do it, a minimum of 4 hours. And the reasoning for that is for all of those dim details. Now, when it comes to your total frames, there are a few different caveats. Stuff like if there's a real bright star in your field, then you're going to need to tone it down a little bit. Or in the case of Orion and Andromeda, and even parts of like Carina and Tarantula, there's some really bright features of that object. And you're going to need to tone it down to preserve those bright objects, but then go longer to get those faint outer edges. So yeah, at minimum you're gonna have to play with the amount per frame, but the total time I would recommend is just 4 hours. When I first okay, on my screen it was showing that it was a little bit slow, but yeah, so when I first started I was always taking just like an hour here, hour there, and I didn't really enjoy the results until I got above 4 hours. Once I hit 4 hours, it was better. But there was somebody who did this crazy study that was like, depending on the camera, you know, you can, if you really want to get max out on the data, you can go up to about 33 hours. And not everybody's going to do that. That's professional level stuff. But as a beginner, yeah, if you can squeeze 4 hours, just hang out and enjoy the night, you know? That's a great starting point and gives you plenty of data to work with. So, yeah, PDEF commented on my comment about live stacking. You know, if you're going to take the time and do some EAA and show people stuff with the ASIR, you might as well tell it to save it. You know, because if you keep it on the same target for a couple hours, even though I just said 4 hours is good, but if you're at your local club star party and you just have it on Andromeda for 3 hours and you're doing EAA instead of traditional long exposures, save those images and take it home and stack it. You know, you might be surprised with what you got. Okay, and Ollie commented, ooh, it's a tough one, but he would like to be able to see Andromeda, of course, but he thinks now the Crescent Nebula. Alright, you got me there, buddy. That one, I wouldn't think that the Crescent would be one that a lot of people would want, but yeah, I get it. That one's a very unique one. Tom's got about 9 hours in on M101. Okay, I get that because of that one does have a lot of faint on the very outside edges, so there's a lot to get there. And Augie asks, what is EAA? EAA is electronically assisted astronomy. So basically what we do, but instead of turning it into a beautiful picture, so like the exposures and looking at it on a screen, like that. So for example, with the ASIR, I could have my setup outside the observatory during one of our public star parties, and instead of doing a traditional 2-minute shot, I'll take it down to about 30 seconds, but I'll bump up the gain, and it'll still stack the pictures in the ASIR, and eventually they'll be able to see what the object is. And the benefit to that is if you're at a public star party, instead of spending hours glued to one target, using those short exposures with high gain, you can bounce around to different things and just show your visitors what they're looking at. And it's a pretty neat way to show people some cool stuff. Hey, Joe, thank you for coming, man. Hopefully we'll see you next time. But yeah, eventually that's something that I would want to do. And like, if you watch any of Chuck's astrophotography, he does stuff like that too, where he'll bounce around the galaxies and go nebula hop and stuff like that. And that's EAA. Another sip of my ginger ale here. See people coming and going. Yeah, if you got more, still got about 20 minutes here. Let me see if I missed anything. I'm gonna scroll back up. Moon stuff, Joe stuff. Actually, didn't hear from Marcio about what they would want to do in the north, but I don't know if they're still around, so. Let's see. Oh, I guess one of the things I can ask you guys is I did mention for next month's stream, we'll pick the topic tonight, so let me to figure out how to do this. Oh, hi, Mike. What's going on, man? Yeah. The ASIR definitely has a ton of advantages. The multi-star guiding that they put in definitely changed the game, too. For a while there, doing single star guiding wasn't working out that well, but as soon as they put multi-star in, it's a breeze every time. Marcio, wow. 25-hour data set of the dragons. Woo! I kind of want to see that picture when you're done with it, buddy. Wow. So Tom is looking to buy his first OSC camera, has a Red Cat and a 150 refractor. Which camera would suit both scopes? That one's kind of a tough one. Because the thing that you need to take account with is the pixel size. Hold on for a second. What are the cameras that you're looking at? So maybe we can do a few comparisons. Because I just pulled up astronomy.tools, and we'll just do a couple comparisons there for you, Tom. While I wait for you, Augie just got done editing 15 hours of stacked images of the Eastern Veil. Wow. That has to look good. Like, it has to. Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree, Texas, with the watching it align. I would recommend every time, if you move your setup for any reason, just calibrate it every time you get going. Right after you get done polar aligning and you get focused and you get it on your target, just let it calibrate it's kind of fun to watch anyway. So if you leave it sitting still, you shouldn't have to do any calibration every time. Yeah, and I agree with you, Pete, about the ASI air shaving time off of the learning curve. But to follow into that with what Ollie just asked, Ollie's wondering if I'm pretty much exclusively the ASI Air, or do I have a favorite desktop program too? He likes the Air, but he misses the mouse on full screen. So, right now, exclusively Air. I am waiting to save up a little bit for a laptop, and then I'll start working on the other stuff. So I definitely want to learn Nina, so at least I know how to use it and play around with the other stuff. So Nina might be the next choice. Okay, so Tom is thinking the 533. So let's go with, let's see, what did he say? Let's pull up the red cat. I'm going to switch to this. Okay, so if we go with the 533, yeah, see, for the red cat, what you're looking at here is that if you're seeing is okay, your pixel size is actually going to be way off. It's actually going to be a little bit big. What you want to do is keep it in between 1 and 2. It doesn't, like, you can kind of tweak it a little bit whether or not you have a good night. So if you have an excellent night when it comes to seeing, or you're doing stuff like binning, that can change how this is interpreted. But if you want to go one by one binning and just okay seeing, this is a starting place, trying to figure out your pixel size. Finding a camera that works for something like a Red Cat and a 150 refractor, it's going to be a little bit tough. Let's find, what model is that Newtonian, or that refractor you have? I know Skywatcher has one. A lot of these are pretty much the same anyway. We'll just go with the Evo Star. Yeah, at the Evo Star, you actually end up oversampling. So with the 533, it really wouldn't be a good fit for either one of them. Texas asked about, have I tried stacking in Photoshop or Lightroom? He says he has not tried that program yet. So the okay, so I picked the right one then, the Evo Star. But yeah, you would end up undersampling. So let me switch it back to this while I pull something up to answer the question about Lightroom. Just have to find it real quick. Okay, so this picture that I'm sure you guys have seen a few times, maybe, you know, in my intro, like I mentioned in the mosaic video, this is a 3-panel mosaic that was stacked, like the bottom and then like the very middle and then the top. The thing about that is I use Lightroom to stack it all together. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, I have. However, it's been quite some time since I used Lightroom to do stacks, but I'd really only use it for wide field stuff. Anything deep sky related, I would either use DSS, or I'm starting to get more familiar with the PixInsight way of stacking things. But for wide field, using Lightroom works, especially on Milky Way pictures, and if you're doing star trails, Sequator is pretty decent with the results that come for star trails. And if you want an example of that, I think I did that one last year. Yeah, so if you want an example of a sequator stack, I did this one in sequator. When I first took this, it was originally intended to be a time lapse. I think the video is in here. It's kind of a bummer. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it was originally intended to be a time lapse, but just watch what happens. You can tell there's something I forgot. Towards the end there, got a little bit dewy. So I was playing around with Sequator and decided, let's see if I can do some star trails with this thing. And lo and behold, it worked. So Sequator is excellent with star trails. Yeah, I would agree with Mike on that one, and with it being a very long scope for a 533. Hey, thanks, Mike. And Texas, thanks for the compliment there about the Milky Way one. Yeah, Mike. The funny thing was about that that Star Trails pick with the time lapse is, if I show you the video again, you see a few lights flashing off in the distance. This was at a local campground I go to every spring, and they had an event happening, and that was just the headlights of people pulling out. But I thought it worked out pretty well with accentuating these trees a little bit. Yeah, I kind of want to go back to that. Finding a decent sensor. Do you want to stay in the ASIR line, Tom? Because if you're pretty much, if you're using the ASIR, you're pretty much gotta stick to the ASIR line. I think it'll be decent. 1600 wouldn't work out. I've seen some good stuff from the 1600. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm trying to think. And if we're gonna go with the Ziwa line, might as well just cycle through it and see what we get. I don't think that 34 MC is good though. If you get anything, you definitely want to make sure it has cooling, no matter what. Right. Yeah, I'd agree, Mike. That would be a little bit better. Or, you know, you input like, hey, I have this telescope and this telescope. What would actually work for that? .174 would work with the EvoStar, although I think that one is let's go. These so cool cameras. Just want to look at the sensor size of these, and to see if they're even still sold. Doesn't look like it. It looks like a few of these have been canceled, the ones that are on this Astronomy Tools list. It's like this 174, it's not showing up. 183, I think, is still there. Yeah, it's still there. Ah. Oh, hey, Free Fly, thanks. Thank you for that. I don't know. Keeping it in the Ziwo family, Tom. Well, let's go with the one I got and see what it says. 294 would be good for your EvoStar. What about the Red Cat? I think I've done this on the Red Cat before, and it's not that great. Yeah. Really, really bad undersampling with the Red Cat. But it would be great for the EvoStar. So I guess that's a thought for me for upgrading the telescope. Anyway, since I already have the camera. Let's go back to the That's ASPC sized 071. I think the 071 was decent. Alright, and then now with the Red Cat. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be able to. Well, yes, Augie, you say buy once, cry once. But here's the thing we're running into. Tom is asking about what's a good camera that I can use for both my Red Cat and my EvoStar 150. Problem is, you find one that has good pixel size in one, and it's just awful in the other. So you might need a separate camera for each telescope just to get good pixel size. Yeah, Mike, I would agree with you on that one. Mike says the problem with the page you are looking at is that it doesn't show the field of view. He finds it more important than arc seconds per pixel. So in that case, yes, you'd want to use something like Telescopius, because at least you can see what you're looking at there. Right, I would agree with Ollie there. About using the 533 on a 135 Samyang or broken on lens, they're the same thing. And he has to drizzle. Excuse me. Jeez. All this talking. Now, one thing I do remember too in the earlier days, say for example the 294 that I use, I remember that Trevor used to always 2 times bin his stuff with some of the scopes that he was using just because of the pixel size. There's different ways that you can use it for all of, use one camera for multiple setups, but your processing might be different or the way you shoot might be different. Yeah, and Ollie just pretty much reciprocated on what I said about sometimes you might need a second camera. And Pete jumped in and said, budget is a huge factor. If you only have $1,000 to spend versus $2,000, then you'd be looking at a 533 over at 2600, for example. Yes, I agree with that. And it's been asked, at least in my case, why I chose the 294 over the 533. It was available. That's the other side of the coin too. Don't leave yourself with one option, because I mean now they're starting to catch back up with cameras being available on the market. But if a specific model, if for some reason has a shortage, allow yourself to have a backup that at least you can get going. And definitely don't stick with one vendor when it comes to getting your first camera. You guys are starting to get a little bit ahead of me here. This is awesome, though. Well, all right. So Texas, you mentioned before buying the 533, you were told about less vignetting than some other models. So. Yeah, the other side is, what do you have the camera attached to? The telescope, or if you're using a camera lens with a converter, that makes a difference. But the one thing about the 533 that I like over the 294 that I have is the lack of amp glow. Amp glow can be a problem on a lot of ZWO sensors, but for that one, it's not. But either way, if you take good calibration frames, it doesn't matter anyway. But Texas asked, what telescope and camera model do you recommend for Andromeda? Well, first off, if you already have a camera and a lens, use that first. But if you're going to buy something, get something around the Red Cat size for the telescope, and then for the camera, any DSLR will work. Unless you want to try like really try to pull the hydrogen alpha of the nebula that are in that galaxy. It'll take a long time to get that data, but you can. But yeah, if you already have a camera, just roll with what you got. You can get Andromeda with a lot of things. Right. I would agree with Pete on that one too. Uh, it being a smallish sensor, so gives you a lot to play, a lot of room to play with when it comes to what telescope you're connecting it to. Jeez, Pete. ASCAR FRA 400 and a 2600 MC to get Andromeda. Whew. It's a little pricey. Wait. What do you have it mounted on? Yeah, we got a couple minutes left here, so. My opinion on guide scope versus off-axis guiding. That's what Marcio just asked. Right now I haven't done off-axis, so my opinion about the usefulness of it is kind of not that good. But each has their own perks. Because, for example, with off-axis, you don't need a secondary telescope. Really, what you need is just an attachment for your main telescope. And depending on how you pack things up, that might make things better or worse. When it comes to certain setups like those with the ASI Air, I haven't tried off-axis with the ASI Air, and I don't think I've seen anybody do it, because I don't think it's possible. So if you already have an off-axis guider and that's the way you're going to stick, it might block you from using certain hardware like the ASI Air, or maybe even the freeware version of it. I forget what that one's called. Astro Gear, I think. But the regular guiding is fine. It works out just fine. I don't see any issues with it. At that point, I just call it personal preference, really. Yeah, I would agree with your statement there, Pete, about the 533 for Andromeda. Although it would be an awesome looking mosaic, I'll tell you that. But alright, guys, we got another minute or two here. If you got one or two last ones, go ahead and ask away. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to get out of here so I can go to the DMV in the morning. Yeah, but okay. Pete said his all that's mounted on a CGM 2. Nice. I would agree with wanting the EQ6 over that. So, but yeah, it looks like you guys are just chit chatting away. So that's great. If you want to keep chit chatting, the chat will still be open for a while. But I think that is pretty much it here. I'm gonna try to keep it. So this one was pretty close to full moon weekend, which is why I chose it. And I have to double check on when full moon is next month. Off the top of my head, it's like the 12th or the 13th, something like that, because it's right in the middle of the Perseids. I think there's a star party that night at our local observatory. I'm not sure. I have to double check. But if not, I'll probably stream the 12th. Even though it's the height of the Perseids, it's not going to be that great because of the full moon. So that'll probably be the next one. And watch out for the post. I'll probably put it up a week or two out, deciding the topic for the stream. So that way we can have an actual topic instead of a general QA. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every 4 years in the U.S., you have to, or at least in my state, you have to renew your driver's license, and I have to do that tomorrow because I'm due next month. So, and I don't have any time between tomorrow and when it expires. So tomorrow's the day to do it. So, all right. Yeah. So, yeah, it's great seeing all the interaction here, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming, and like I said, I'll be putting the posts up about when the next live stream will be. So, I thank you all for watching. Clear skies.